I said hold on. I wasn't ready.
Nobody cares if you're ready.
I gotta find it. There it is. Okay. All right. Three, two, one.
That doesn't matter. It's already recording. What are you counting down for?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players Podcast. We continue our World Cup preview, review, whatever, whatever you want to call it, I guess. We are heading into episode 131. 131. World Cup group stages are over. We're almost done with the round of 16 at this point. By the time this goes out, I believe round of 16 will be done. Just double check here.
Yeah,
The
the
round of
16 will be done
16
by
will
tomorrow.
be done by tomorrow, which would be Tuesday, the 6th. Wednesday, the 7th, this will go out, and the quarterfinals won't have even started yet. We'll have a couple of days for that to happen. Why are we recording this today? We should have recorded tomorrow when this was actually done. We could have recapped everything through the round of 16.
Because we're not planners.
We're not. We are terrible at this. Good for us. Go us.
Yeah, yeah.
Gosh. And we're doing it 9 p.m. too. Like, not like we had a good amount of time to uh we're not great at this. This is a professional podcast. Welcome everybody. We are hoping you are
Yes.
enjoying it. Um yeah, Connor's gonna lead our discussion today. He's very, very excited.
Oh yeah.
I have never seen him more excited to do anything ever.
I
So
you,
hopefully he is prepared
if you
and
can't see
ready.
it in my face, then I don't know what to tell you.
um, Before we dive into all that, actually, you should do it. You should take us there, Mister Leader of the Day.
Oh. Well, before we do all that, scarf of the week. What do you got?
Oh, am I going first? This is.
Oh, well, I'm the leader, so now you have to go
You're
first.
right. So Black Friday
Uh-huh.
stole my wallet.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I fell actually and accidentally bought three brand new scarves.
Ah,
One of those things. You trip, you fall, your finger lands on a button. Next thing you know, you got three scarves in your mailbox, right? Um, I got this. I think this may be one of my newest favorite ones. It's a new Red Bull scarf. I love the like horizontal stripes. The middle part, the middle logo is super sick. I love the Red Bull logo in the middle here. It's just different. Like all the other ones have it on the end or like as a crest over the top. This one in the middle is like stitch in there. I like it. So I got two more over the next couple weeks, and we'll break them out as we transition from World Cup into MLS. One of them is very, very on theme for what we'll be talking about in one of our upcoming episodes, I'm sure.
oh, spoiler alert.
No spoilers from this guy. Uh,
All right, my turn. I'm gonna ask you a really simple question here. Once I can get my scarf the right way. Do you recognize this scarf anywhere?
Bruh, I can't because
Wait, let me
you're
unblur it.
blurred. That's awesome. I love it. That's
Do you have
fantastic.
you seen this scarf?
Never, not once, but it's wonderful. I really wish I could get it. That's awesome. Welcome to the family of Red Bull scarf owners. You only need nine more to catch up to me.
Yeah, that's not happening. Yeah, it's my
That's
first Red Bull
awesome.
scarf though. It was a
It's
good
nice,
deal.
man. I love this one. Yeah, it was a good deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was cheap.
Yeah, I had no plans to pick it up until I was scrolling through, and I'm like,
You
I
gotta.
gotta, don't I? I
You
gotta.
gotta.
Yeah, so I've got I will give some spoilers. I do have a Chicago one that came in, and a Houston one that came in. So I'm sure those will be in your inbox as well, or your mailbox at some point too.
Well, I don't think I got Chicago and Houston. So I had one for each of those already. So I tried
That's
to
right, you
avoid both.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. I forgot about
I
that.
try
Yeah,
to
so
avoid doubling down unless I really like the scarf, which in so I got five new scarves. Two of them I doubled down on. I got a Montreal one that I really liked. And
I think I know what you're talking about. I like that one too.
okay, so in fairness, I think I have a Montreal Impact scarf. I have to double check. So technically I have a new team
All right, cool. I like it. I like it.
because I have
Yeah,
CF Montreal now.
yeah.
And
So
then
we
I got
try.
another Atlanta one, of course.
Of course, yeah, you had to. So we
Uh-huh.
try to do color coding here on the scarf wall, and as you can see, my orange, it was just lacking. There's not enough orange there to make this scarf wall awesome. So I picked up Houston. And the Chicago one, I didn't have one. It
You
was the
got
new
it for the World
crest.
Cup because they're going to win the World Cup.
Right, they are. They're on their way. Shaqiri FC tomorrow.
Yeah, big day for Shakiri
Uh,
FC.
yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. But we will get to that at some point. Maybe we'll preview that. We'll go through the round of 16 and we'll preview the last two games.
Yeah, then you can actually get my predictions and I won't forget about them.
Loser. I got to update that. I haven't updated that in
That's okay. You don't
probably
need to update it.
probably since the end of Group E. I think it's been a
That's okay.
while.
That's okay.
Um, but yeah, so I'm at 52 scarves now.
That's a lot of scarves. I think you have a problem.
And listen, I will accept that I have a problem when I have no more wall space. But if I can see the wall, I don't have enough.
Oh boy. All right, should we jump into things since I'm leading?
I mean, it's your call, right? You're in charge.
Yeah. Well, if it's my call, I could just end the podcast episode right there. We just
You
call it the
totally
scarf
could.
episode.
You totally could. Oh, we should do that
Or
one day. We should go through scarves one
I was
day,
just
just
about
as
to
an
say I could
episode.
derail it and we could just go through all the scarves we have. I'm
Bro,
sure
I
the
don't
listeners are
tempt
gonna
me. I'll
love
do it.
that.
Don't tempt me. I'll do it.
That sounds like torture. All right, let's go through the groups. Let's just recap what happens and then we can ask any questions, talk about anything. It's kind of free flowing. Neither of us prepared anything because, as you know, and as Andrew has already stated, this is a professional podcast. So let's start in alphabetical order this time since we went reverse the last time we talked. So, Group A, just for a recap, Group A finished up with Netherlands on top on 7 points, followed by Senegal with 6, Ecuador with 4, and Qatar with 0. My first question for you, I think this is I'm giving you a softball one here. There's a pretty easy answer for this one, but you had mentioned, I think, a couple episodes back that Qatar had actually pulled all of their players out of their club teams and had them train specifically together for, I want to say you said like years leading up to this World Cup. Does that work?
That is true. It definitely didn't. It worked. It worked because we got to laugh at them a little bit.
That's true.
If I can remember correctly, and I'm trying to find it. Um, I don't see it there. It was a while ago, but there were rumors going around that the Qatari national team basically pulled their entire roster the second that they were awarded like the free host spot for the World Cup and just train them together as a group. 20, 2020 when was it awarded? 2019, 2020 around then?
Yeah,
No,
sounds
probably
about
earlier
right.
than that. It was no, it was 2017. It was 5 years. 2017.
Hmm.
Um and had them train together as a group with Felix Sanchez for 5 years straight to gain the chemistry and the tactics and the ability um, to play together as a group. And it completely backfired. I
Yeah,
mean,
to
I
say the
mean
least.
the single worst performance of any host nation ever. They were done by the second game. They scored one goal. They had the worst goal differential of any host. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Um, just completely embarrassing from the hosts. You thought, I thought, I won't say you, I thought after seeing them in the 2019 Gold Cup, um, and their performance in the Asian Cup that they would have a much better showing, and they just
Yeah, that's a
terrible.
good way to describe it. They just completely fell apart. I don't know what it is either, because like you said, I mean, we saw them play much better than they did in this tournament. I mean, it was still going to be an uphill battle for them to get out of this group, but it wasn't even close for them. I mean, they looked awful.
Yeah, the score lines don't highlight how comically bad this group was. If you went back and watched the replays, I'll just pick the first two games, right? Against Senegal and against Ecuador. In against Ecuador, you can say it was nerves, right? The 5 years they've been training, waiting for this moment, and then the first play of the game, goalkeeper goes to get it, slaps at it, misses it, tap in for a goal, gets lucky, gets called back for offside, right? They pull that goalkeeper because he wasn't good enough. Put the backup in. The backup goes to keep possession out of the back, swings and misses at a ball. Like they looked like a semi-pro team. Now again, the Qatari League, which is where all these players come from, is it anything better than USL? Probably not. If we're being realistic, right? That being said, you would expect a team that's basically played together for the last 5 years to put up some sort of a fight, and they just looked shocking.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to put that. One of the things that I kind of took away from this group is just how ruthless the World Cup is. Because I thought Ecuador were the best team in this group for the first two games of the tournament, or at least for the group games, and they didn't even make it into the knockouts because of one game. It's just wild to me how you have to be like you can't take a game off in the World Cup, and Ecuador to me proved that because they slipped up in one game against Senegal, where all they needed was a result, like a draw, and they were through. But they slipped up one game and they were out. I thought for the first two games, they at least looked on par with the Netherlands, arguably better. So, the best, they looked like the best team in the group, and now they're out. It's just
Yeah, it
wild how ruthless it is.
it highlights how difficult it is to win that tournament, right? Because not only do you have to be basically perfect through 3 games or very lucky, right? Ecuador were very unlucky in the fact that I would agree. I think they were very, very strong in their opening 2 games. Um, However, the other teams were as well. That's kind of the tough part when you get handed an opponent that basically is I don't want to say a free win, but for all intents and purposes, each team got 3 points off of that. So you're playing in a 3-team group,
Mhm.
which means you drop points and you're basically out.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And it's harsh, right? And then you go out into the knockout stages and it happens again, right? It's 90 minutes, win or go home. Maybe you get 120. You don't. You're right. You phrased it very well. You don't get to take a day off. You don't get to take a game off or a playoff. Um, and that's why the depth is so important in certain squads, right? And um, you saw the United States get hurt by that, right? We'll talk to them in a little bit, but they go into the Netherlands game with their essentially their third choice striker because their top one got hurt, their second one didn't fit the bill. Maybe it was a tactical thing because Greg thought he was going to big brain Louis Van Gaal, and I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get angry, but um, either way, right? We didn't have a starting caliber number 9, let alone the depth to handle tactical changes like. So the depth of a team is almost nearly as important, if not more important, than the starting 11 themselves, right? Uh, Wales, and we'll get to them in a little bit. Same thing, right? They had a few injuries, a few suspensions, and their quality dropped massively once they got to their bench.
Yeah. That's what I think when I look at the Ecuador team as well. I I say to myself, if Ener Valencia went down, what happens to this team? It almost feels to the point where you could see them rivaling Qatar for the bottom of the group because he held so much weight for that team. And I know that they have a lot of other quality players in that team, but he scored. I mean, I know he scored the first three. I'm checking really quick. Okay, so Caicedo got the last one. So he scored 3 out of the 4 goals for them this tournament. Without him, this probably wouldn't have even been a competition down to the end. I mean, I think Senegal and Netherlands probably would have just ran away with it. But yeah, I 100% agree. I think having good depth is absolutely important because one guy goes down, you can't afford to slip up for a game. So next guy's got to be ready to step in. I don't want to focus too much on Group A. I think there are more exciting groups in the tournament, like
Okay.
this next group that we're talking about, Group
Group
B.
C. Oh,
No, no, no.
sorry, I forgot the letters.
I know.
A, E, B. Group B.
B, yes, very good, very good.
Yeah.
Group
Yeah.
B finished with England on top with 7 points, USA in second with
Boo.
five, Iran in third with three, and Wales in fourth with 1 point. So I think we can mainly focus on the USA for this group. But one thing I want to talk to you about before we jump into that, please tell me why Group B has demonstrated that Euro snobism is absolutely dead.
Oh my God. How much time? Um, the amount of people who discounted, or I will actually give them the benefit of the doubt for discounting the United States because in the three friendlies we had leading up to this game, we registered 0 shots on goal. We came in as the second youngest team in the group, coached by a guy who I can't speak badly about him, but we all know our thoughts on him. Um, so I don't even mind that. But Iran to sleep on that team that has a very strong attack and to put Wales above them that are a one man team and thinking that that team deserved a better place in this group than Iran was just silly. All because Bale got them to Euro 2020 quarterfinal or whatever, right? Like, do we not realize how long ago that was? How Bale hasn't gotten off the bench in four of the last five LAFC games? Like, people just think because they played in Europe that they're just instantly better and they've never seen football outside of Europe. And it's just like, oh yeah, England, Wales, Poland definitely through. Denmark has to be through. Uh, who else? Belgium. Belgium was a shock. Serbia was a shock. I mean, a lot of European teams getting upset because people. I don't think that they sleep against them, but I think the rest of the world is catching up, right? And we talked about this a little bit with the African nations, but you look at the Asian teams as well. You've got Japan topping the group of death. I think we can easily call that, right? You've got South Korea performing very well, knocking out a strong Uruguay side. I mean, the rest of the world is catching up to Europe and South America. I think it's very clear to see that. And to pretend I'm not saying that the best football isn't played in Europe because right now it is. I won't disagree with that, but that's also because that's where the money is. As money around the world continues to be added to this game in CONCACAF, in CONMEBOL, in Asia, in Africa, as money is pumped into this game and more talent is being found, the gap is going to close. The gap is absolutely going to close. Um, I'm very interested in, again, we talked about this last episode. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I'm very interested to see the allocation of spots for each nation as they expand the uh, number of teams in the World Cup. Because if I have to sit here and watch Luxembourg and Azerbaijan playing a World Cup against Puerto Rico and the Cayman Islands, like, what's the point? You know? So let's open it up and bring in spots for Nigeria and Algeria that missed out, right? Let's bring it in for I can't pick a can't pick a CONCACAF side, but let's bring it in for I believe Chile finished fifth in CONMEBOL and they just missed out. Let's give them the spot instead of giving it to another European nation who just barely missed out. Should Italy have been here? Probably. But the fact that they couldn't get by whatever, I think it was Serbia who knocked them out, or that might have been Portugal. But um, Italy put themselves in a position to not get out. That's not on anybody except themselves.
Yeah,
But
it
I
was.
don't need to.
It was
I was just gonna say I don't need to see more small European nations in this tournament when other countries have closed the gap and deserve that spot.
North Macedonia that knocked them out.
Let's go. Big up Pandev.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add there. And I don't want to waffle on about it too long, but I think you summed it up
Yes, you
pretty
do.
well. So I'm gonna switch it to focusing on the US now. Taking into
Before you do that, sorry, this is your New York Mets update.
Yeah,
As Edwin Diaz has been named to the All MLB first team, and
nice.
Francisco Lindor and Max Scherzer were named to the second team,
Very
and
nice.
the Mets got Justin Verlander. So basically, give me the World Series.
Yeah,
Thank you for your time.
it was an amazing day.
Ah,
Nice. Let's move on to the USA now. Taking into account their whole tournament, I'll ask you the hard question. Was it a success or was it a failure?
for the United States, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So how much time do you have?
I
Out
got
of
a lot of
curiosity. So listen, the final eight or the quarterfinals was a pipe dream. If we got there, we overachieved. Getting out of the group, I think people expected, but not as many people would have been shocked if we missed. I think round of 16 was the ceiling for this team, and they got there. It would have been a miracle to beat out Netherlands and Van Hal, and um, we had the ability to do it. By the way, we had our chances. We created a lot of really good chances. Yes, Van Hal sat in a little bit and allowed us to play. Um, I disagree with some of the coaching choices that came from Greg. I don't think we needed to bring a super false nine who's going to drop in between my midfielders to receive a ball, lay it off, and just start running when we really needed to stretch a team um, who was going to sit in and be compact anyway. Um, that's my personal opinion, but I'd say overall that this was a success for the United States. Getting out of the group shows that as the second youngest team, I believe, in the tournament, either first or second. I believe it's second. As the second youngest team in the tournament, we were able to beat out a strong Iran team, by the way, a very very competitive Iran team, and Wales, who on their day, which was 4 years ago, could have been a very big opponent. Right? We went toe for toe and outplayed the fifth ranked England. Should have gotten 3 points from that game. What you see out of this team is the potential. The If we had 4 more years, screw it. If we had 1 more year, 6 more months, would we finish that chance against England? Yeah. Would we not give away that penalty to Wales? The little things like that are the things that you know are going to fix themselves as we grow in this golden generation. 2026 is a very, very bright future. We need another center back. We need a true number nine, and maybe a winger who creates a little bit more um, on his own. Pulisic, and by that I don't mean we don't need a new one. We just need one of them to step up and do it. Hooli or Weah. Um, I'll call it a success. I think we achieved the goals that were logically set out for this specific group. 2026, those goals are much, much higher. Those goals are quarterfinals, semifinals. Has to be. Doesn't matter who we draw. Has to be.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well summed up. I'm gonna call it a success also, but I will caveat that by saying that I think we did the bare minimum to call it a success. I think I actually think this team, talent wise, had the potential to go farther than we did, but I think tactically, Greg held us back. I mean, I will give Greg his due credit in that I think he lined the team up really well at the start of like every single game. When maybe the only exception is the Netherlands game, but even then, I don't want to say that too much. I don't, but in the group stage, I feel like he knocked it out of the park all three games. He lined them up super well, and everything went great for the first 45. And then it was as soon as he had to make decisions in the game, it just fell apart. He would either wait too long to bring on subs, or he'd bring on the wrong subs, or he would change the tactics and just kind of sit in more and absorb the pressure. And that's when the team just folded eventually. We saw it happening against Wales. We saw it happening against England and almost happening against Iran. He was not ambitious enough in the attack, and it showed because we scored 3 goals the entire tournament, which is very on par for Greg. He just does not know how to develop an attack. This team is awful at attacking. Um, for me, I feel like what I noticed in terms of the attack throughout like the tournament, it felt like we were trying so hard to set up a goal where all we had to do was like tap it into a wide open net. It felt like we were trying to make every pass so that we could just find the wide open tap in. Where I wish that we just sometimes just had a hit. I wish it wasn't like there's a little bit of space, like just take the space and have a hit. Not let's try to get cute with it and try to find someone across the box so that they have a tap in because it just didn't work. Um, and I think Matt had sent in actually that was a meme, but I think it kind of also summarized like some of the tactical parts of it where it felt like in the Netherlands game in particular, where we were just crossing the ball into the box a lot. And I feel like that was with other games as well. We were trying to like cross the ball into the box a lot, where we just don't have a striker other than Haji, who only played one game and subbed on for a little bit for the Netherlands game, where the striker is going to be able to win the ball in the air. Like Jesus Ferreira is not going to win much in the air. Sargent isn't going to win much in the air. And I don't think Pooley is either. Maybe Weah could, I'm not sure, but um I just don't think the tactics were right in the attack. I don't think our ceiling was that we were going to be able to win the World Cup. I think our ceiling was probably quarterfinals with the right tactics, but I'll still call it a success. We got out of the group. Ranking wise, it was one of the toughest groups, even if, not every team played up to that standard. I and I one of the main reasons I'm going to call it a success is because I'm still very optimistic and hopeful for the next World Cup.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think I think you hit it on the head with the tactical ideas, right? Greg got and this isn't a knock on Greg, by the way. Greg got out coached by the one of the greatest tactical minds in the game of football. Uh, that's not really a shame. What's a shame is to reference Louis Van Gaal's comment. The U.S. never tried anything different. We changed our tactics and they kept doing the same thing. And he's right. We kept going with the same attack, the same idea, the same mindset. And the Dutch just took it and they're like, okay, we know how to defend against this and we're good at it. So keep trying. And that's the issue. And that's why Greg can't, and this is my question to you, does Greg continue? This is why Greg can't continue is because he's shown time and time again. You mentioned the sub patterns, right? Gio Reyna, everybody calling for Gio Reyna, was quite clearly not 100%. You watch him in that Dutch game. He was not 100%. Whether Greg told him to be hurt, I don't care. It was quite clear that he was not fit enough to play, which happens. Accept it. It's not on Greg. It's not on his inability to make subs. It's not on his I need to play MLS players. His fitness kept him from the World Cup. That's it. The fact that he was even there and not replaced with somebody, Paul Areola, we're talking to you. You're telling me Paul Areola couldn't have given a better showing than Jordan Morris uh, in that which game he came in the Wales game, didn't he?
He came in Wales and the Netherlands game, I believe.
Yeah, I think Paul Areola gives a better fight there. You know, he talks about needing speed and power. That's Paul Areola's game. It's also Jordan Morris's game, but Paul Arriola does it. Um, so it goes all the way back to his player selection. I get that. Shaq Moore did not prove that he needed to be on the field. He had a very bad showing. I'm not going to try and hide that. Um, he can't come back because he doesn't see the game as well as somebody else might be able to. I think Greg knows how to will his team to get results. You look at his resume and you see Gold Cup, Nations League, victorious over Mexico time and time and time and time again, which is something that has never happened in the history of this sport. Um, Playing youth players, youngest team in the second youngest team in the group, getting out of this group that people did not think, including myself, did not think was going to get out of this group. He knows how to get certain results. But when it comes down to playing the big boys, when it comes down to playing Netherlands, when it comes down to playing, if we had to go against Argentina, France, England, we did well against, but I think that's because Gareth Southgate messed it up. It wasn't Greg, it was Gareth. You go up against the big boys and you need to be able to see the game better than he does. So I think Greg still has a future in football. I think he's a great coach for specific types of teams, just not this team when we have our golden generation ready to go.
Yeah, he 100% cannot be the coach for the 2026 World Cup. It would be an insane mistake for the federation if he were to stay as the head coach. And that's not me trying to make a knock on him as a coach. I don't love him as a coach, but I don't think he's a terrible coach. I mean, like you said, look at his resume. He has not really had a step wrong in the entire time he's been the head coach. Yes, it hasn't been pretty, not in the slightest. Games are usually like 1-0 or at most like 2-1, but he got a result in every game that he needed to. He won the Nations League, he won the Gold Cup, he qualified us for the World Cup, and he got us out of the group. He did everything he was supposed to do. It wasn't pretty. I don't think he's the guy that's going to take us into the next, I'll call it level, where you're competing against these big European nations like the Netherlands and the Argentinas and the Portugals and the Brazils. But he did what he needed to do. I agree with you. I think he has his place in club football. He'll be somewhere else. But someone else definitely needs to take the reign and get this team prepared for 2026.
Just before we move on, I do want to reference something you just said about how it wasn't pretty. There was never a day in his job that somebody said you needed to play good football. When U.S. Soccer hired Greg, it was with one job and one job only: get to the World Cup, win trophies along the way, but get to the World Cup. Do not let 2018 happen again. So what he did is he instilled this mindset in a team of win at all costs. Doesn't have to be pretty. Doesn't have to look beautiful. To quote Gerard Struber, doesn't have to be sexy, but it has to get done. That mindset won us Nations League, Gold Cup, Mexico games, gets us into the World Cup. That mindset gets us out of the World Cup. That mindset doesn't beat the top teams. You need talent and tactics to beat the top teams. Now that we have that base, that win at all cost base, now we can bring somebody else in who can use the players, the tactics, the attacking talent that we have to get the results against the big teams.
I'm going to use this as a transition point into Group C, but I do want to say I don't think we can harp too much longer on wins over Mexico when if you were to put them on a line graph and just say like progress and time, Mexico is regressing. I think we've talked about this a bit before. This team is just they're aging out of their star players, and the next group of guys that are coming in are not at that same level. So the team is just regressing right now. And the US is on a really good progression. We've seen the team grow. The team is super young, as you said, second youngest team at the World Cup. They're only going to get better. I think the team already is stronger than the Mexico team, and we're only going to get better. I feel like they're only going to regress more once they lose guys like Ochoa, um, and Raul Jimenez. So I don't know if we can say anymore that like, oh, we consistently beat Mexico now, because I feel like that's just kind of becoming the bare minimum of what we need to do. We should be the top team in CONCACAF, no question. If Mexico is regressing, we should be the top team. I know Canada has a couple of good players and they're kind of growing and getting better as well. We need to be the top team in CONCACAF, and that needs to be our standard, and that shouldn't drop. I'm not saying that that's necessarily like what it should have been under Greg, but I think moving forward, that needs to be our standard. And if you look back, like if we repeated what we did this qualifying again in the future, I feel like it would be disappointing because
I agree.
we scraped through an international like playoff game just on goal difference. I mean, we were like 4 or 5 goals away from having to go play against. They played New Zealand or something. I forget who they played,
Yeah. Yeah.
which would have that would completely flip around the narrative for Greg. Because like you said, his goal, don't let 2018 happen again. He was like 4 or 5 goals away from potentially having 2018 happen again.
Yep. Yep. Like I said, he went with a defense first mindset because he's a defensive player, defensive coach, right? Now that we've got that base of how to defend well, it's time to bring in somebody who can fix the other side of the game.
We could dive into this on another episode. I want to drop a little hot take before we move on to Group C. I would like to see someone else other than Jesse Marsh as the USMNT coach in 2026.
Eh.
I don't know who yet, but I think I would like to see someone other than Jesse Marsh.
All right, we are definitely never talking about that. I don't want to ever hear that come out of your mouth ever again. Jesse Marsh is our Lord and Savior. You are wearing the scarf of his best team ever. Don't you dare
Well, I'm
disrespect.
glad his best team ever was like 4 or 5 years ago. That's
Don't
what I
you
want to
ever.
hear. That's that's what I want to hear when my coach 8 years later is taking charge. His best team was 8 years ago.
That man won 3 supporters shields with Alex Mouille playing right mid. Don't you dare disrespect the GOAT. That's right. I got him into another episode. That's right.
I mean, I would expect you have to get him in every episode now.
I'm about to say, we got to be running on 7 or 8 episodes straight now.
It's something like that, yeah. And
We're
you
awesome.
can't just say his name. You have to actually incorporate him into the episode. All right, let's move on to Group C. We've talked about the USA enough here. Um, Group C finished up with Argentina on top on 6 points, Poland in second on 4, Mexico in third on 4, with a -1 goal difference worse than Poland, and Saudi Arabia in fourth on 3 points. Saudi Arabia for a while almost looked like the best team in this group. And again, I feel like it's another Ecuador situation. They're sitting bottom of the group. What went wrong? What happened? They did the hardest job of the tournament in the first game, and now they're sitting bottom of the group.
Yeah, that heartbreaking is the way everybody loves an underdog. Anybody who doesn't probably supports Mexico. So even though they were the underdog, weren't they? Um, yeah, listen, they again a feature of not finishing the job, right? You go out and you start off hot, you top of the group after day one. That's awesome. You have to see it through. Um, so the Poland match, right? Zielinski scores. You're running that game. I'm looking at stats here. 64% possession, 537 passes completed, comparative to Poland's 297. 16 shots, 5 on target. Chesney's just a monster. Okay, I believe in that game. He stopped the penalty. Um, you know, things that you tip your hat sometimes. At 1-0, you're playing the ball around the back. Ball bounces over your foot to Robert Lewandowski, the best tap-in merchant of all time. Yes. Yes. Come at me, Eurosnob. I dare you.
Clip it.
Um, no, right. So you put it on one of the most lethal goal scorers of all time, 1v1 against your goalkeeper. Not a great day. You can't make those mistakes, right? Then you go back to the Mexico game, um, which I didn't actually see. I was in class. The audacity of this school, by the way, to make me go to class during the World Cup.
I know. On World Cup
Unbelievable.
decision days.
Yeah, literally
Should have had the week off.
unbelievable. Um, right? They got outplayed. Mexico outplayed them.
Oh yeah,
Very,
easily.
very, very
They
simply.
dominated.
They did. But again, that's one of the things where if you do the job against Poland, which you could have with the chances and stuff you created, this game becomes less of a problem. Again, the cruelty of the cup. You have to be damn near perfect for 3 games, and then 4 more after that. They we spoke about this in last episode as well. They show that they have talent in that league that is going to be poached. That talent is going to go overseas. It's going to go next door. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to go and get better. Saudi Arabia will be back and they will be competing even better in 2026.
I feel like the Mexico game for me was the most disappointing game for them. Did the hard job, did the impossible, beat Argentina. What a start. Unreal. Set yourselves up so well to move on. I want to say there was some stat where it was like maybe a little bit over 80% of teams who win their first game move on to the knockouts. You set yourself up so well. Okay, you go into Poland, you play the game superbly, but you end up losing. All right, fine. We said you can't take off any games. It worked out for you here where you lost this game, you still had easily a shot to move on. Your last game is against the team that's bottom of the group and has looked awful so far. All you have to do is just go and did they have to beat Mexico or did they just have to tie? Let's see.
No, they realistically they needed
No, I think they did have
no
to
they
win.
needed a win and they
Yeah,
needed Poland to lose by more than
yeah,
one. I heard
yeah.
however many they lost by.
I think if they got a draw and then Poland had one more goal scored on them, they would have moved on.
Yeah,
But anyway, regardless, all you need is a win. You've been the better team for the first 2 games. Yes, you had to slip up against Poland, but all you need is a win here against the team bottom of the group, and you move on. And they just completely took their foot off the gas. They
yep,
were absolutely dominated by the team that was struggling a ton, was completely out of form. And it just felt like after that Poland game, it was just like done. All the air was sucked out of them, and they just flopped in the last game and put
yeah,
them bottom of the group. Completely
yeah,
took
because
them
they
out.
didn't deserve it, right? They didn't deserve the result that their play showed. But football's a cruel game. I say that all the time, mainly based off of Red Bull. But you will come to learn that if you are listening and haven't heard. Yeah, they didn't deserve it. It was rough. It was unfortunate, but that's the game. So it's a lesson learned, right? It's a lesson learned for that group. Big ups to Harvey Renard. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant coaching performance in the group stage. Again, a coaching performance that deserved a move, deserved to move through. I would have loved to see him coach. Oh my god, I would have loved to see him coach against France. Saudi Arabia versus France. See what he could pull off against them. That would have been something magical. Um, but they live, they learn, they move on. That's the way it is.
Yeah. One last question for you on this group. Mexico obviously struggled. First time they haven't been out in the knockout stages in a long time. Where do they go from here? Is it only downhill? Is there any salvaging?
For Poland, I'm sorry.
Mexico.
Oh, sorry, I never heard of them. They're so far below me. I don't even care. Um, again, we've spoken about this. Yikes. The you compare them to Canada, you compare them to the United States and the youth movement that both of those countries has right now, comparatively to their players and the buzz that is being generated about them. Um, they were the second oldest team in this group or in this World Cup, comparative to the United States second lowest, and Canada, if you took Atiba Hutchinson out of it, probably down there in the bottom 10, right? Um, Listen, it's if I'm a fan or a supporter of Mexico, I'm worried. And we talked about it a little bit, but I'm worried. It's quite clear that our dominance on the region is slipping. It's quite clear that the potential that a lot of these players possess in our youth system is nowhere near that of the United States. A lot of the hope is that they are getting Mexican American dual nationals to come to their side. And that hasn't worked out for them, right? You look at David Ochoa, hasn't really panned out yet. Um, Jonathan Gonzalez, remember when we thought he was going to be the biggest loss that this country has seen since
Yeah, that
like
was a brutal
Nam?
day back then.
Yeah, and he wouldn't even sniff the
Oh
18
no, no
of this
shot.
team, right?
No.
So
He's got posters up of Musa Adams and McKinney on his
literally,
walls right now.
it's a worrying time to be a supporter of the Mexican national team. It's you're always going to have the tough, they're not in a spot. Let me rephrase. They're not in a spot where it's like we're not going to qualify for a World Cup. I can't
Mhm.
imagine that another team is going to knock them out right now.
No, no
Then Costa
chance.
Rica, Costa Rica's on the downswing too, right? We saw them with their aging team.
Oh yeah.
Um,
No more Keylor Navas.
yeah,
Forget about it.
Honduras, eh.
Yeah.
Panama didn't make it this year. Um, I don't think that they're in like that big of danger.
Yeah.
However, it's worrying that they're not going to be that team, right? They missed the round of 16 for the first time in what, 5 cycles, right? It's not a blip on the radar. It's a sign. Their entire team is going to stop playing in the next cycle. They're not replacing them with anybody. It's worrying to be a supporter of L tree.
Yeah, it's a good summary, I would say. Definitely not really great encouraging signs at the moment. Um, yeah, and to just attack onto your point as well, I feel like if you look at who the US in terms of dual nationals are getting to commit to their team, it's guys that are getting recruited from top European teams, Dest with the Netherlands, Musa with England. We're getting these guys that are being competitive and wanted by top level teams that are competing to win the World Cup. And
Gaga Slinina in Poland.
yeah, and Mexico is grabbing guys that can't break into the US team and are kind of just second fiddle. And believe it or not, those are just not working out right now. Ochoa, Efren Alvarez, Jonathan Gonzalez. So I feel like that kind of speaks to where both programs are headed.
Right. And you mention all those names. I mean, Julian Araujo is another one, right? From LA. All players that we were like, man, we'd really like to have them in our group. Julian Araujo actually got time with the men's national team in Nations League qualifying, I believe. Um, wouldn't even sniff the 26. Not even close. None of those players would even breathe the same air as our 26. And that's why it's worrying. It's not worrying for Mexico because they're starting to slip a little. It's worrying because the guys that they're trying to pull and make our team weaker don't even it's not even a drop in our bucket. That's the worrying part.
Yeah, if they wanted to do that, they got to go grab a guy like Pepe. That's the guy they needed to go convince to join their team
Or
because
Brand or
that would,
Brandon Vasquez.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think Vasquez would definitely help them, but I don't think losing Vasquez would necessarily hurt us.
Correct. And again, that's the worrying part.
Mhm. All right, let's move on to Group D. We have spent a ton of time on the first three groups. Group D finished up with France in first on 6 points, Australia in second on 6 points, Tunisia in third on 4 points, and Denmark in fourth on 1 point. Oh boy, this was a fun group to say the least. France obviously, I think, was the first team to qualify for the knockouts. They absolutely did what they needed to
Frauds.
do. Frauds, is that what you said?
Frauds.
Yeah, I
Fraud
don't know about
wads.
that. Um, but yeah, the rest of the group, Australia, Tunisia, Denmark, that was exciting. Uh, I mean, I just ask the obvious question? What happened to Denmark? What they finished bottom of the group in a group that I feel like a lot of people had them advancing out of.
They started off with a very, very tough Tunisia side who packed it in and said, "Come break us down, I dare you." And as much as you like to think about it, they really don't have the attacking creativity, right? They don't have a tricky striker or a tricky winger who can, you know, disrupt a defensive line. Scott Olsen had a terrible first game, by the way, which did not help them in the slightest. But you had Christian Eriksen, who's more of a pass maker than a playmaker. You had Dahlberg, who's more of a threat in the box. Um, then behind him, you had Delaney and Hoiberg, who don't really create a lot. Again, we talk about Scott Olsen not being great. Against and again, we're talking more about Denmark here, but against the Tunisia side that defended very, very well. Um, very, very clear identity and what they wanted to do. Um, and they succeeded in what they planned out in doing. They got a point, they got themselves moving forward. You go up against France, you compete with them, possession. You play a game that you were comfortable with, a team that you beat twice in Nations League. Kylian Mbappe beat you. That's there's no shame in that. It happens. Again, though, it goes back to the cruelty of the cup, right? If you can't pick up points against teams that you're supposed to pick up against, the losses against teams that you're supposed to lose to hurt more. So you go into this Australia game now needing 3 points and some help, and they do the same thing, right? They sit in, they say, "Break us down, we dare you. We know you couldn't do it the first time." Um, Again, they go with a more attacking lineup, and the Matt Ryan pulls out a great game. They sit in and they're really, really confident in their defensive abilities. They do the job. Lecky picks up a goal, and then they say, "All right, I dare you, come break us down," because you don't have that guy to break us down. Um, you know, not a single person on that side do you think, okay, this team is, or this guy is somebody who I can give the ball to. He can do 400 step overs and put a guy on his butt and go. There's also not a lot of mobility in that front line. So Braithwaite's probably your most mobile player, right? But Dahlberg, Yusuf Poulsen didn't get off the bench, which was shocking to us because right we thought he was going to be a main guy for them. Um, so there's not a ton of you know fluidity in that front line. It's very uh, methodic. So it was easy to defend against. And yeah, the Australians dealt with it. They picked up a goal and they said, "Come break us down. We dare you." They couldn't do it, and they went home.
I don't understand how this team. I'm gonna go to obviously one of my favorite stats here, our lovely XG stat. Um, Denmark produced a 1.4 against Tunisia, a zero point 0.6 against France, and a zero point 0.6 against Australia. This team was clearly not creating or threatening at all. How do you not just at least try out Yusuf Poulsen? How does he not get any minutes at all? How do you not just throw a little caution to the wind, let a guy who's proven that he can score just go out there and try to grab a goal?
Yeah, I don't know if he was hurt, if he picked up a knock in
Yeah, I mean
uh
maybe that's
it
that
had to have
had to.
been. Because again, that's a guy that you rolled out in 2018 and he was your one of your main strikers. So I don't see anything here regarding his um yeah, nothing here regarding an injury for the World Cup. So it's a coach's decision, obviously. But yeah, the other thing too is Christian Eriksen did not create nearly as much as he probably should have.
Yeah. Looks like here he had like a .06 xG, I think. Yeah, that's total. So I think that's like expected goals for his shots and based on the, I guess, his assists. Trying to read this
Yeah,
as best as I can. So
and
yeah, I really didn't
that's just
create
not
at
good
all.
enough.
No,
Yeah,
Andreas Christensen had more XG than that.
yeah. Well, because he scored.
Yeah, well, that helps.
If I'm looking here, I use key passes as a pretty good
Yeah, that's a good stat too.
indicator. Um, 3 key passes in 3 games.
For your playmaker, that's not great.
Correct. Um, Let me just double check something here. Yeah. Sorry, nine key passes in 3 games, three per.
Okay.
So a little bit better on that note, but it goes back to creating to the correct people, right? I can play you through in on goal 400 times a game with 900 xG, and you're going to score -3 goals. Now I can play Kylian Mbappe in the same amount of times, and I'm going to get 1,800 goals because the man is superhuman. It's about playing the right person, and not a knock on Christian Eriksen, but the players around him weren't up to the task. Now the issue with this team here is a lot of the guys that they were playing, um, bit on the older side. You got Simon Kaiser, 33, Hoiberg's 27, Christensen 26, Schmeichel 36. That was his last run. Ericsson at 30 with his health issues. Delaney at 31, Cornelius at 29, um, Braithwaite at 31. So you're going to see a lot of turnover on that side as well. So it'll be very interesting to see how they come back.
Yeah, 100%. Uh, anything that you want to talk about in terms of Australia qualifying?
I picked the wrong team. Anybody who watched the Group D preview knows that I was deciding between them and Tunisia to go through, and I picked the wrong team, obviously, and very nearly topped the group, didn't they?
Yeah,
Um,
just goal difference.
yeah, and it was 4, right? If they have a better showing in that first game against France, they make that 2-1 instead of 4-1. This is way closer than it needs to be. They showed out, man. They showed out. Matt Ryan did Matt Ryan things. Um, and really, they outside of that France game, 2 clean sheets,
Yeah, they were locked down in
massive.
defense.
Yeah, and really, they went toe to toe with Argentina too. Now they didn't generate a ton, but they didn't get blown out, right? They went up
Yeah.
against a team that are a lot of people's favorites to win the World Cup and took them to a 1 goal.
Yeah,
Yeah, much more impressive than I think a lot of people, again, including myself, thought they were going to put on.
yeah. They found ways to get the job done. It was very Greg-esque in that it was just like be scrappy, find a way to win the game, and that's what they did.
100%.
All right, let's move on to the next group here. Group E. Boy, what a fun group this was. Oh man. Um, we'll dive into the talks, a little bit more detailed talks about it in a minute. But Japan topped the group on 6 points, followed by Spain in second with 4 points, Germany in third with 4 points, but 5 less in goal difference, and then Costa Rica in fourth with 3 points. Let's talk about for a brief moment how Japan and Costa Rica were the two teams going through.
The greatest 85 seconds in sports.
Yes, that would have been an incredible, unexpected twist to this tale. But I wanna start off by giving absolute credit to Costa Rica here. We talked about this in the first episode that we did about how awful Costa Rica was. Why are they here? Feels like a waste of time kind of thing. And they were just so much better after the first game. Like they were just competitive. They were in games, they were making things hard. Yes, they still conceded another 4 to Germany, which was not great, but they were competitive for 70 minutes of that game. They were in it. They had the lead at some point late in the game. They won against Japan, the team that topped the group. None of it was super convincing, but I feel like after that Spain game, I just expected them to get walked over by every team.
Yeah. I like the way that you put it that they made it difficult, right? Japan flopped against Costa Rica. I don't know what happened. They should have walked them. But you're right, against Germany outside of that last 10 minutes or so. Um, they made it difficult. They made it hard. The beginning of that game, Germany should have been up 4-0 to start, and Keylor Navas did, kept them in the game. They go in and they take the lead and they realize what they just did, and it's like, okay, now we have to focus on being uh, defensive to try and stop these guys. And Germany said no, no freaking way, and they just fell apart. I still don't think Costa Rica had the quality to be here. I would have rather seen Algeria or Nigeria.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't give them a ton of credit. I mean, the Japan game should have been 0-0. That was a terrible error by the goalkeeper trying to keep that Fuller shot out. But yeah, they made things difficult for sure.
Yeah. Like I said, it was not pretty, but yeah, they fought. I feel like I mean, I'm looking at the XG for them and the XG against. Yes, Japan technically they should have lost. It was 0.14 against 0.9 against. And Germany, they got absolutely lit up. It was like 5.7 XG against and 1.3 XG for. So that to me is just saying that I think they're playing well. Either they were getting super lucky, which I'm sure was some of it, but they were just playing a lot better than they should have been playing, which to me was saying that, they're despite the fact that they just got lit up like a Christmas tree in the first game, they were still out there playing hard. And I liked it because they were making it tough.
Very topical. Lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yes, it was
Very
in the
nice.
spirit of December. So yeah, let's move on to Japan, obviously. Got unfortunately heartbreakingly knocked out today in penalties. As much as I wanted them to move on, I did have Croatia moving on, so I'm glad that Croatia pulled out the penalties, but it was still really heartbreaking to see them get knocked out there. I think they had such a good World Cup, and it was really tough to see them get knocked out. I don't know if I would have seen them being able to seriously be a threat for like the semifinals, finals, and actually like have a shot to win it all. But this was a team that I think could have at least made some noise in the quarterfinals. Um, so I'll ask you, what was their key to success?
Being a team. We talked about when we were doing the Group E preview. You asked me make the case for Japan at 2. You remember that?
I do. Yeah.
Do you? It's on TikTok. If you don't, you should go check it out. Everybody should go check it out.
Yeah.
You asked me to make the case, and I said this. They took a team of Brazilians who, at the time, played their entire starting 11 and were favorites to beat the entire world by 1 billion goals to 0. And they held them to 1. And that right there is unbelievable. Um, they smacked around the U.S. 2-0, tied a very good Ecuador side, beat South Korea 3-0. I mean, it was quite clear that this team, while they didn't have the big names and the big stars, knew exactly who they were, knew exactly what their game plan was, and performed it brilliantly. Um, Knocking off Germany and Spain. Unlucky against Costa Rica. Extremely unlucky against Costa Rica. They should have beat Costa Rica. Croatia. But the fact that you took two of the top 10 teams in the world, beat them 2-1, coming from behind, is a massive credit to understanding who you are as a team, understanding your identity, and understanding that when it all comes down to it, nothing's over till that final whistle blows. And you keep fighting and you keep pressing and you keep playing and you keep defending until the referee says the game's over. Brilliant performances by them. They should have beaten Croatia in normal time. Um, Extra time was kind of boring. Penalties were poor. I mean, that's what happens when you have people playing the Premier League. Small leagues like that don't know how to take penalties. Um, three players missed for Japan. All three of them had ties to the Premier League. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying MLS is clear. I
It's
mean,
a weird correlation. I don't know.
listen, I'm not trying to be that guy, but it's quite clear that MLS miles. I mean, here, let me put it for our Eurosnap viewers. Kilometers clear. Kilometers clear of the Premier League.
Nice, that's good. Yeah, the most I think you're spot on Japan there. And the wild thing to me is just the fact that when I think of other teams that I'm like, yeah, these guys play like a team. Like it's not just a group of guys that are super talented that just happen to all be playing on the field at the same time. I think of teams like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, who play with each other week in, week out, or play against each other. They know each other and their gameplay really well. And while they don't necessarily have the talent, the reason that they're on this stage is because they play so well as a team together. The surprising thing for me for Japan, and we did this when we did our deep dive into the team, these guys aren't, it's not like they're all coming from like the Japanese league. They're playing all over Europe in different places. I would love to see the US kind of adopt a style like that where you can get that chemistry and teamwork level despite the fact that you're playing in different places in Europe. So I think that's such a strong quality for this team, and I think 2026 again they're going to be a competitive team and a threat to cause some upsets like they did this year.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
All right, on to the next one. Our other friends from CONCACAF in Group F.
Ouch.
We'll go over their World Cup performance a little bit here, but Morocco topped this group with 7 points. Already starting off with a nice surprise there. Croatia in second with 5, Belgium in third with 4, and Canada in fourth, unfortunately and unluckily, with 0 points. Before jumping into Canada, I do want to talk about Belgium. There was a lot going on with Belgium off the field.
That there were.
Do you think that was the main reason that they did not qualify out of this group? The off the field distractions.
Is it a main reason? No. Is it a big reason? Yes. You When you play in a game like this, when you play in a team sport like this, your biggest quality is your ability to block out everything else around. When you start letting the social media and the reporters and all that stuff come in, you stop focusing on the points of your game that you need to fix or you need to keep super clean. Um, from that whole debacle that you just mentioned, and I'll let you go into the details of it, right? As soon as that happens, the Moroccan side, was it before or after the Morocco game? I thought it was before, but it might be after. Might have been after. Anyways,
I'm not sure. It might have been a little bit of both, I think.
sure. Either way, right? You watch the Lukaku performance, and I've actually yet to watch these highlights. I was in class for this one too. Um, Yet to watch these highlights, but shocking, shocking from what I'm hearing about how he missed some wide open sitters. That should have put them through. That should have put them in over Croatia. And again, I don't. Do I think the off-field issues are the reason that he missed all those chances? No. The fact that he hasn't been fit in, however long it's been, and he came off the bench to give his best effort, which he did. Um, but he's not match sharp. He's not match fit. Right. That stuff happens. Um, that is the reason that he missed those chances. It wasn't a big part of the off the field issues. The off the field issues led to what happened after. The coach immediately resigning as soon as they missed out. I can guarantee you at least half of the squad does not come back and play. They hate each other. That's the type of stuff that ruins you long term. Is it the reason these guys lost the game or didn't qualify? No. Is it the reason that these guys might not be very good for the next 20 years? Maybe.
Yeah, I think you're pretty spot on with that. This is a team that, while that wasn't, I would say, the main factor, it was definitely a factor, I would say, in them not performing well. But I think I would actually say the main factor, and I think you touched upon it as well, was just the fact that they're coming in really bad form. Like, they're star guys. Courtois this season for Madrid has not been at the same level that he was last season. Lukaku has basically like completely lost form ever since going to Chelsea. And then Hazard is not nearly the same player that he was when he was at Chelsea. And this team is aging big time. I know that that was part of the off the field drama, was the fact that Kev De Bruyne said that they were too old to win a World Cup. Maybe he's got a point. I don't know. I mean, they've got a 33-year-old Alderweireld, 35-year-old Vertonghen, 33-year-old Witzel, 31-year-old Kev De Bruyne, 30-year-old Courtois, 31-year-old Thomas Meunier, Hazard's 31, Mertens is 35. This team is aging. Like, I it's not going to be surprising to see majority of these guys gone by the next World Cup. Now the question beckons, what's the next generation going to look like? It doesn't seem like it's going to be at the same level. This was 100% their golden generation. This group should have been so much better than they have been. The fact I don't think they've won anything as a group, unless I'm incorrect. The fact that that is the case is insane, because this team is so talented on paper. But I
They've
think,
got the 1920 Olympics. Does that count?
did any of these guys even play?
In 1920, I don't think so.
Probably not. Then I'm not
I would
counting it.
I would hope not.
Mickey Mouse Trophy. I think there are a
So
lot of issues with this team going forward.
yes, so to speak on the idea of the next generation, right? Um, Courtois is still going to be around. Castiles is still going to be around. What level they're playing at in 4 years, who knows? You've got center backs here, 22, 24, 19, all relatively high rated, playing at high clubs. But again, you're at um, one of them's at Stade Rennais, who is currently third in Ligue 1, but I don't believe he's playing much. You've got one who's getting good minutes at Leicester, who's about to get relegated, and one who's at Anderlecht, who is doing well there. You've got Andre Onana, who switched over this year from Everton, who has a bright future.
What do you
Um,
mean? Amadou Onana. Andre
yeah,
Onana
you're
plays for
right.
Cameroon.
I know. I saw a Onana. I do this all the time.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yuri Tielemans is still in a good bit of prime.
Mm-hmm.
De Ketelaere is only 21 and forming um, a bit of a career for himself. But at the end of the day, you're looking at not a ton of as you mentioned, the idea of the golden generation is quickly fading. Um, I'm not saying the next generation is not at that level, but there's definitely some room to be improved and uh, some more things that they can improve upon. They do still have Christian Benteke at 36 years old. Will he be playing for DC United? Maybe. Call him in. Give him a shot. Let's go.
Why not? Couldn't have been worse than Lukaku.
Right.
All right, let's talk about our lovely friends to the north. Oh, Canada. The O is representing
Oh,
how many points they got this tournament.
oh, oh, Lord.
Canada, I will say, on paper, looks like one of the most unlucky teams this whole tournament. And
Yeah,
it's right now, if you just look on the surface, it makes us look terrible because we were ranting and raving about Canada. Oh, this team is really good. Don't sleep on them. They're gonna show up. They're gonna play well.
I
And
put
not
him
to say
dead
that they,
last.
what?
I put him dead last, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but did you expect 0 points dead last?
You're damn right I did.
No, you didn't. Stop
100%.
lying. Stop lying. Um, yeah, I mean, I didn't have them getting out of the group either, but I certainly did not expect them to be on 0 points. And nor do I think that they played at a level that deserved 0 points.
Yeah,
They deserved the loss against Croatia. They 100% deserved 3 points against Belgium and didn't get it.
yeah,
And you can make the argument they should have won the Morocco game too, and they lost. So I would say their performance was definitely disappointing. It almost feels like a team that is making their first World Cup appearance in a long time. Um, but they will be back. 2026, they will be back, and they will be threatening to. I would almost compare them to like a Japan, threatening to cause ruckus in a group and cause an upset, move on to the next round.
I'd be worried if they weren't back in 2026,
Well,
considering their
yes,
host.
obviously they're back in 2026. I meant competitively.
Oh, okay. Yeah, deserved more against the Belgian game. Got that first goal against Croatia and said,
See ya.
"See ya, I'm good." Um, I'm going to refuse to believe that they deserve to get a result off of Morocco for getting 0 shots on target. So, gonna stop you there.
They had 1.4 xg.
Yeah, on an own goal. Stop it. You put it great. This was a team that was playing in their first World Cup in 30, 40 years. I don't remember the last time. Was it 90? The 90? Yeah,
I don't know, a
30
long
years.
time.
Yeah. They will grow. They're again, we talked about the Mexico, United States, Canada comparison. You just had Kone who was sold to Watford. Um Kripo is if Kripo is healthy and he will get healthy, he's going to be the next guy in goal. You know that he's got the ability to play. Um Laren, David, Davies. I mean, all these guys are going to grow um, as the time goes on. Tajon Buchanan showed really well, I think. Alistair Johnston heading over to Celtic now. Richie Larea going back to Nottingham Forest. Eustachio still playing at a high level in Porto. Atiba Hutchinson going to retire, hopefully, so they can put somebody else in that spot. Um, there's potential in this team. They're young or young-ish, and they are growing in their game. They're growing in their ability, and they've got players in the pipeline that are going to come through and be more successful. Hey, calm down. Stop throwing things. We're just
Sorry
trying to have a
about
conversation,
that.
okay?
Got a little too excited.
Listen. So the future is bright for this group. It was a disappointing showing, but a promising. I'm trying to think how to phrase this properly. It was
It was
disappointing. The
disappointing
results were
showing, but a promising performance.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. I was thinking more like a disappointing results with a promising showing is
Yeah,
kind of the way I was going to
yeah.
put it. Again, it'll be interesting to see what the next generation looks like because you kind of have a good feel for who's in this squad and where they're going to go, but you know that there are 5 or 6 kids, 17 years old right now, who are going to be in a really good position in 4 years to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, Canada's only going to continue to get better the more that MLS gets better. So
Yeah, yeah, and
and
MLS is
MLS
climbing
is,
every year.
yeah, it's going to exponentially keep getting better. So
Yep,
I think in turn that's going to help Canada get better as well.
100%, 100%.
All right, next one, Group G, almost done, almost at
Oh
the end.
gosh, here we go.
Group G finished with Brazil on top with 6 points, Switzerland in second with 6 points, very surprisingly, only one goal behind. Like, if Switzerland scored one more goal, they top the group. Cameroon in third with 4 points, and Serbia in fourth with 1 point. Where do we start? Brazil was pretty straightforward. Expected them to top the group. They did.
Yeah, but it wasn't by a lot, was it? You expect them to
Yeah,
run away
but
with
they
that
they
group,
kind of
didn't you?
locked it up in the first two games, and then I think they could kind of take their foot off the gas in the third.
Yeah, they rotated it a bit, but um, still expected a bit more out of them, out of their set. We talk about the depth, right? The depth of teams, and I expected the depth of Jesus, Rodrigo, Anthony, Gabby, and Martinelli um, to be able to keep up with the Cameroon side, which again, not a very easy task going up against Nuhu Tolo, MLS legend.
Of course.
However, things you expect, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I would expect them to have a better result than that as well. But I would still say, based on their performance today against South Korea, seems to me that they kind of just were like, let's take our foot off the gas and make sure nobody gets hurt.
Which actually backfired because they had two kids get hurt.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's why they have the depth. Uh, Switzerland, I not necessarily surprising, but you know, was probably between them and Serbia at the start to see who was going to grab that second spot. And they, I want to say, pretty easily grabbed it. I feel like it was pretty clear that they got that second spot. They were going to hold on to it. Didn't feel like it came down to like a last second thing. I guess my question for you, what surprised you so much about the Switzerland team? If you were surprised at all.
Yeah, no, I was. I didn't have them getting through. I had Serbia getting through. I think I was less surprised with Switzerland, more surprised with how poor Serbia were. Switzerland on paper were not. They didn't wow me.
Yeah, there
You
was
know,
nothing amazing.
it wasn't a team of world beaters. It wasn't anything crazy. Um, you had my. Let me go back a second. The depth is what didn't get me. I think their starting 11 was good. I really enjoyed it. It was the depth that I didn't buy into, and that's what I thought was going to hurt them in the long run in games like against Serbia in the third game. Um, Another team that kind of just knows who they are, knows what they're about, right? They took Brazil to 1-0 in the 80 was it the 81st minute? Is that when he scored? 83rd minute, sorry. So they defended well against a very good Brazil side. They took out Cameroon, again, a relatively uninspiring win against Cameroon, one of the more boring games of the group stage, right? But went in and handled their business. They were a team with the experience behind Shaqiri and Xhaka and even Mbolo, who was over there. You've got Jan Sommer on the bench, who's was it Jan Sommer on the bench?
I think
I
so.
don't see him. Yeah. Either way, right? You had the experience of players there who can will players on. Ricardo Rodriguez, another one who has been there, done that, knows how to get the results that are warranted, right? So that experience helps. Mix that with a little bit of youth talent, right? In Akanji and um, I mentioned Mbolo on the first one, but Mbolo on the second one as well, right? That little bit um, is important. So they found a way to get the job done, and again, less impressed with them and more disappointed with the Serbs.
Yeah, I guess that's a good transition point. We talked a little bit about how Switzerland was able to move on. We could talk a little bit now about what was holding Serbia back. To me, it seems pretty obvious. Defensively, this team was a wreck. It conceded 8 goals in the group stage. You absolutely will not move on in the groups if you concede 8 goals. That's just point blank, period. My question for you, should we have been more skeptical ahead of time about this defense?
No. No. I mean, look at what they were able to do in their last couple of um
Nations League?
what's the word? I mean, Nations League, World Cup qualifying, they handled it. In the Nations League, a relatively group, but handled Norway, handled Slovenia, um, and handled Sweden too. You go into World Cup qualifiers, they beat Portugal straight up. And that was, I mean, obviously that was the toughest one they had to deal with. It was, our good friends Ireland, Azerbaijan, Luxembourg. I mean, really, really difficult outside games, but they had to go straight up against Portugal, and they picked up 4 out of 6 points against them. I don't think there was any worry there to say, oh gosh, we should be terrified. I mean, they were leaky in terms of the goals that they gave up, but I mean, they shut out an Erling Haaland Norway in September in the Nations League. Shut out Sweden, shut out Hungary, who was playing very well at the time. Did they give up goals? Yes. Did it mean we need to be worried about them conceding 8 in this group? 3 of them Cameroon? No. No. I don't think there was anything there that said this team we should be terrified of. They should have gotten 3 points against Cameroon. They blew it. It was a 3-1 lead, and they blew it. Probably should have picked up more against Switzerland too, but against what we talked about them before. And Brazil, they probably should have lost. Really, they should have been looking at least 3 points. Cameroon would have then been on. Cameroon would have then been on 3 as well. -2. The goal difference. Again, they might not have qualified. They still needed a result against Switzerland. I'm now looking at the group here, but right, that Cameroon game, you win that Cameroon game instead of tie it, completely different mindset. Back to our theme of the day, the curse of the cup, right? If you don't take care of the teams that you're supposed to take care of, your day gets a whole lot harder. And that's where I'm disappointed with them, is I thought they should have put out a better showing.
Yeah, they got the job done in the attack like they needed to. 5 goals. 3 against Cameroon should have absolutely been enough to get the job done.
Yep.
2 against Switzerland definitely could have been enough to get the job done. And in both of those games, they had a lead. So
That's right.
I think, honestly, it almost seems like it was more of a mindset thing, and they let things slip. And once it started slipping, it was hard for them to kind of get a grasp on things again. So, yeah. Defense holding them down, knocking them out of the tournaments. I mean, badly knocking them out too. 1 point for a team that many expected to get out of the group. Definitely was very disappointing.
Yeah, definitely underwhelming. I think you'll see you've got potential in this defense, right? Pavlovic and Milinkovic, both 21, 25. Irakovic, 21. He can make a move to a club. I mean, he's at Belgrade right now. He moves somewhere else, learns a little bit more. He can be somebody important. You got Illich, 21, at Hellas Verona, as more of a defensive center mid. Racic, another defensive center mid. Grucic, defensive center mid. I mean, there's potential in this group here.
Mm-hmm.
You might just have to wait it out and see what happens.
Yeah.
But, you know who'd be really good at fixing a defense? My boy Greg.
Berhalter?
Yeah, let's do it. You take him, and then we'll take this Stojkovic, who clearly can get a lot of goals.
Oh yeah. Honestly, we should just swap notes. It would work out.
Greg's notepad would be.
Here's how you throw a behind the back bounce pass.
Yeah, it's a diagram of just the bounce. It's like a calculated triangle bounce pass.
This is the exact angle you need to throw the ball at. for maximum bounce passiness.
Fantastic. I love
All right,
that.
let's move into the last group. We've been waffling on for a while.
Yeah,
I don't know if
please.
anybody's even listening anymore at this point.
Oh, they are.
Group H, Portugal tops the group on 6 points. South Korea second on 4 points, moving on goals for, I believe.
Yep.
Uruguay in third, also on 4 points, and Ghana in fourth on 3 points.
Hey, where did you say Uruguay was going to finish?
I had them top in the group.
Oh, did you? That's
Yeah,
unfortunate. You
it
know who had a
is.
perfect group in Group H?
Was it you?
Oh, it was me. That's right, because I know ball.
So let me ask you. Um, well, you know what? Let me not ask you that question because I know your response already, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Ghana because
Okay.
for me personally, did not have really any expectations for them coming into the World Cup. And I feel like they pleasantly surprised me. I think that they were really feisty. I think they were really tough to play against. And I think they made things really difficult for every team in this group. What was your take on their performance in the World Cup?
There was only one team in this group who was younger than the United States. That was Ghana. And they played miles above their experience. You talked about how certain teams made it difficult, right, for um, teams in the group to get by, and that's exactly what they did. They were unlucky not to get a point against Portugal. Um, Less on them, more on Portugal's inability to see it out. 3 points against that South Korea team is fantastic. Um, that's crazy. I'm looking at these stats. 22 shots to 7. All 3 shots on target went in. Um,
Efficiency.
that's crazy. Um, and then you had the Uruguay game where they got undone in the first half and they couldn't pull it back. I mean, um, you lose 2 out of your 3 games, no matter how competitive you are, you're probably not going through.
Mhm.
So a bit unfortunate for them, but kind of like the United States, where, or rather Canada, where the results didn't go in their favor, but the performance shows positive potential. Right, this team is going to be one to watch for a very long time.
Here's the one caveat I will say, just kind of looking at this team. I definitely think they are super young, obviously, and are going to continue to get better. It seems like a lot of the young guys that they brought on didn't play a ton. There's a number of guys in here that are like 22 and got good minutes and definitely have massive potential. I'm a huge Muhammad Kudu fan. He was awesome at this World Cup, definitely really made a name for himself. Um, Salis Abdul Samed also got plenty of minutes, also 22. Mohamed Salisu playing at Southampton, 23 years old. He got a lot of minutes. But I see like a number of guys at the bottom here, like 18, 20, 22, 23. They played like 1 minute total. So I am, I guess, caveating a little bit to see like, yes, they were super young on paper. I want to see how like these guys actually perform once they start getting minutes. But I definitely do think this team has good potential. And I think they've done a really good job at getting guys to who like weren't really in the mix for their other national teams to swap onto their team, like Iñaki Williams, Tariq Lamptey, and it almost had Callum Hudson-Odoi as well. I think this team has good potential. On paper, they were, I think, the lowest ranked team going in, right?
They were, yeah.
They did not look like the lowest ranked team at this tournament. 100%.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, they had a good showing.
Yeah,
Uh, Last question for you to wrap things up, unless you have anything else on your end. What went wrong for Uruguay? Why did they not qualify? Was it just
I
South
told
Korea being better? Did they not perform?
I said this in the episode, is that they put a lot of somebody in the camp of players playing their last World Cup were going to end it prematurely. And it was going to be this Uruguay team who scored 2 goals all tournament. and it was against Ghana in the last game. You don't score goals, and I know it's going to shock some people. If you don't score goals, you can't win games. If you don't win games, you don't move on. It's a very, very complicated higher level science. Okay, football 305. Got to take 101, 202 before you get 305. They the strike partnership of Suarez, Nunez, Cavani, that whole mix in there, they just fell short. They didn't get the job done. And that unfortunately is just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Is you've got these guys that you lean on, and you try and integrate a young guy to help them out every once in a while. That's what's going to happen. Suarez, Nunez, Cavani all combined for 0 goals this tournament. The only person who scored was De Arrascaeta, who had the brace against Ghana. If your strikers aren't scoring goals, you're not going to win games. You're not going to move on. You're not going to do well in a tournament. Think about
Say that to the USA, huh?
I'm about to say, think about USA 2020 or 2017, right? Old, aging strike force trying to implement a young guy to help him out. What happened? They didn't qualify. These guys qualified and bounced because they didn't get the job done when they needed to. Again, they lost on goals for. You don't score goals, it's going to hurt you. It's just a fact of they've been leaning on these guys for so long that the transition period, maybe it didn't. I'm going to think of how to word this. Maybe the transition period for Nunez to get into that team and be a part of it wasn't long enough. Maybe they were trying too quick to get him in, so he didn't mesh as quickly, and he wasn't able to perform. Will he be? I think he'll be fine. You play him as a lone striker with some players on the wings, you'll be fine. I just don't think that he fit well with the other two up there. So
Yeah, the biggest issue obviously was you're not going to score goals if you don't play MLS talent like Facundo Torres.
I mean, big facts, right? Big facts.
Yeah, they deserved no goals when you sit obvious talent that has been playing in one of the best leagues in the world.
Let's see. Cavani, Man United, Premier League tie. Suarez, Liverpool, Premier League tie. Nunez, Liverpool, Premier League tie. 0 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Facundo Torres, MLS, didn't even get a look. Criminal.
Yeah, that's
Criminal.
Euro snobism at its finest.
Unbelievable. But
All right, well,
that's what you get, right? That's what you get.
Yeah, unless you have anything else, that's everything
I
I
got tons of things, but how much time do you got?
I am out of time for you, at least.
Correct. I've got tons of things. They're just not for this episode. We've got tons of things to talk about. So make sure you are tuning in. Yeah, make sure you're tuning in for those. I'll let you take it away, Connor. Go ahead.
No. You got
no. Finish it up.
I don't know how to do it right.
You've done so well. I want to hear you close it out. Go ahead.
I don't know if I know how to do this correctly.
That's the best part about being a professional podcast. You can do it whenever you want or however you want.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for listening. If you've gotten this far, make sure to tune in. We've got more stuff coming up. We're definitely going to continue to recap the World Cup, knockout stages. Maybe we'll do a live stream here or there. I think we should definitely look to live stream the final at least.
I would hope so, yeah. I got an email from StreamYard the other day, like, we miss you. I'm like, I miss you guys too. We'll be back there eventually.
Yes. So more World Cup content to come. And then we're going to dive right into MLS stuff. Tons of news has been going on in the background. We've been talking about it offline. We're definitely excited about jumping into it again. Lots of off-season stuff happening. So definitely stay tuned. That's coming around the corner. It's soon enough. And then make sure to, I don't know if I know this part well enough. Make sure to check out all our other content on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Did I miss anything?
No, that was great.
Okay. And make sure to catch us on the next episode of the Designated Players Podcast. See ya.